President Trump just posted on Truth Social moments ago. He wrote this: Iran just stated that they are going to hit very hard today, harder than they have ever been hit before. They'd better not do that, however, because if they do, we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before. That warning from the president comes at one of the most dangerous moments in the Middle East conflict in decades. Because Iran is not making empty threats right now. They are issuing direct promises of retaliation after U.S. and Israeli forces launched a coordinated attack that killed their supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. The man who has controlled Iran's government, its military, its network of terror proxies across the Middle East for over 3 decades is dead. And Iranian state media confirmed it just hours ago. Here is what Iran's representative to the United Nations said in response. Israel and the United States have attacked Iran. They have violated international law and the Charter of the United Nations. They must be held accountable. So long as this aggression continues, Iran will continue to exercise its inherent right of self-defense firmly, proportionately, and without hesitation until the aggression ends. That statement is diplomatic language, but the message underneath is clear. Iran will retaliate. The only questions are when, where, and how severe. And right now, at this hour, there are serious concerns that Iran could use their network of terror proxies to attack Americans on U.S. soil. FBI Director Kash Patel has instructed counterterrorism and intelligence teams to be on high alert and to mobilize all security assets needed. The NYPD is also on high alert and will be increasing patrols throughout New York City. This is not precautionary theater. This is a response to credible threat assessments. Jacob Aladort is the Chief Research Officer at the American First Policy Institute. He is a former CIA officer and served as Middle East advisor at the Department of Defense during President Trump's first term. His assessment of Iran's current state is critical to understanding what happens next. Iran so far has been responding through its usual playbook, Aladort explains. The playbook we have seen over the last 3 years, volleying huge barrages of missiles and drones, making big threats. Of course, the question becomes their capability and really what they have right now, at this moment, in this hour of desperation. We have never seen Iran this weak or this desperate. And so it is a little bit like dealing with a caged wild animal. You never know. There is an unpredictability factor. So I think it is all eyes waiting and trying to see what is going to happen next. But so far, I think Iran is so weakened that I think it is all desperation at the moment. That assessment, that Iran is weak but desperate, is what makes this moment so dangerous. A weakened enemy that still has capabilities can be more dangerous than a strong one, because desperation removes calculation. A regime that is cornered does not think about long-term consequences. It thinks about survival. And a regime that has built its entire identity around resistance to the West, around leading a network of Islamic revolutionary movements, cannot afford to look weak after its supreme leader was killed. Here is what we need to understand about Iran's reach. We have been lucky here at home because we have not seen a large-scale attack from Iran on U.S. soil. But others have not been so lucky. Israel constantly suffers from attacks by Iranian proxies. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, all of them funded, trained, and directed by Iran. Israel's UN ambassador described what that looks like just hours ago. In the last hour, a rocket targeted the city of Tel Aviv. Civilians, not military bases, civilians. The rocket struck a building in Tel Aviv. An innocent woman was killed, and 21 people were injured. This is a regime that destabilizes wherever it reaches. It spreads violence outward while crushing freedom at home. It is not reacting, it is expanding. It has the machinery of radicalism that does not recognize borders. That last line is critical. the machinery of radicalism that does not recognize borders. Iran does not just operate in the Middle East. It has built a global terror network over 5 decades. Sleeper cells, operatives, sympathizers, people who are waiting for activation orders. And the depravity of this regime knows no limits and has no recognition of human life. What we saw on October 7th with Hamas's actions, that massacre of Israeli civilians, that was just a small expression of the scale of evil that this regime represents. Reports have emerged over the last few weeks from Tehran, from the streets of Iran, about how the regime treats its own citizens, putting people alive in body bags, executing protesters, torturing dissidents. This is not a government that values human life, including the lives of its own people. So what is the risk here at home in the United States? The real threat is attacks on soft targets. Faith community centers, synagogues, Jewish community centers, Iranian dissidents living in America, but also personnel and bases, military families, defense contractors, and particularly the easy targets, the places where security is minimal and casualties would be high. Iran runs sleeper cells in the United States. This is not speculation. This is documented reality. Iranian intelligence has operatives who have been living normal lives in American cities for years, waiting for orders. Some are Iranian nationals who entered on student visas or work visas and never left. Others are sympathizers, people who believe in the Islamic Revolution and are willing to act when called upon. The FBI knows about some of these cells. They monitor them, they track communications, but they do not know about all of them. And in a moment like this, when Iran is desperate and has just lost its supreme leader, the risk of activation goes up dramatically. Here is what an attack could look like. A sleeper cell receives encrypted instructions. The target is a synagogue in a major American city during Sabbath services, or a shopping mall during holiday shopping season, or a subway station during rush hour. The goal is not military objectives. The goal is terror, maximum civilian casualties, maximum media coverage, maximum psychological impact. The attackers do not need sophisticated weapons. A truck, a knife, a homemade explosive. Iran has spent decades teaching its proxies how to build devastating weapons from common materials. The 1983 Beirut barracks bombing that killed 241 U.S. Marines was carried out by Hezbollah using a truck bomb. The materials were fertilizer and fuel oil. The expertise came from Iranian trainers. So, when the FBI director says counterterrorism teams are on high alert, this is what they are preparing for. Not an Iranian military strike on U.S. territory. Iran does not have that capability. But a coordinated series of attacks by sleeper cells and proxies, that is absolutely within their capability. And in a moment of desperation, after the death of the Ayatollah, it is exactly the kind of response Iran might choose. President Trump's warning is meant to deter that choice. We will hit them with a force that has never been seen before. The message is clear. If Iran attacks Americans, the response will not be proportional. It will be overwhelming. It will target not just the proxies who carry out the attack, but the regime itself, command and control centers, leadership compounds, the entire infrastructure of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. But deterrence only works if the other side is rational. And right now, Iran is not operating from a position of rationality. They are operating from desperation. Their supreme leader is dead. Their military has been decimated by Israeli and American strikes over the past weeks. Their economy is in collapse from sanctions. Their people are protesting in the streets. The regime is facing an existential threat. And a regime facing an existential threat does not always make rational calculations. It makes survival calculations. And sometimes survival means lashing out, even as the long-term consequences are catastrophic. This is why the NYPD is increasing patrols. This is why FBI counterterrorism teams are mobilized. This is why security has been increased at Jewish community centers, at military bases, at government buildings across the country. Because the threat is real, the capability exists, and the desperation is at a level we have not seen before. Here is what you need to know if you live in a major American city, particularly New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., or Miami, cities with large Jewish populations and significant Iranian diaspora communities. Be aware of your surroundings. If you see something that does not look right, report it. Unattended bags, people conducting surveillance, unusual activity around synagogues or community centers. This is not about creating panic. This is about eyes and ears. The FBI cannot monitor every location. They rely on citizens to report suspicious activity. If you are part of a Jewish community, talk to your synagogue security team. Make sure protocols are in place. Locked doors during services, security personnel at entrances, cameras, communication with local police. These measures have become standard at many synagogues over the past decade, but now is the time to review and reinforce them. If you work at a military base or a defense contractor facility, follow security protocols exactly. This is not the time to bypass badge checks or leave secure doors propped open. Iranian intelligence actively targets defense personnel. They want information, they want access, they want vulnerabilities. And if you are an Iranian dissident living in the United States, someone who fled the regime or speaks out against it, take extra precautions. The regime has a long history of targeting dissidents abroad. In 2022, an Iranian operative was arrested for plotting to kidnap an Iranian-American journalist in New York. The plan was to take her back to Iran to face execution. That plot was disrupted. Now, let me be clear about something. The overwhelming majority of Iranian Americans are not threats. They are people who fled the regime precisely because they oppose it. They are doctors, engineers, business owners, students. They love America. They contribute to American society. And many of them are terrified right now, not because they pose a threat, but because they might become targets. The regime does not distinguish between dissidents and civilians when it wants to send a message. This is the reality we are living in at this moment. The supreme leader of Iran is dead. The regime is desperate. The threat of retaliation is real and credible. American security services are on high alert, and the president has issued a stark warning that any attack will be met with overwhelming force. What happens next depends on decisions being made right now in Tehran. Does the regime choose to retaliate directly, knowing it will invite devastating consequences? Does it activate sleeper cells for attacks on U.S. soil, hoping to terrorize Americans without triggering full-scale war? Does it strike at American forces in the Middle East, at bases in Iraq or Syria or the Persian Gulf? Or does it choose to absorb this blow, understanding that further escalation means the end of the regime? We do not know yet. The next 24 to 48 hours will reveal Iran's choice. But what we do know is this: the death of the Ayatollah Khamenei is the most significant blow to the Iranian regime since the Islamic Revolution in 1979. It is a leadership decapitation. It creates a succession crisis. It exposes the regime's weakness, and it puts Iran in a position where doing nothing looks like surrender, but doing something could mean total destruction. President Trump's warning is designed to tip the calculation toward restraint, to make the cost of retaliation so clear and so catastrophic that even a desperate regime thinks twice. But warnings only work if you are dealing with actors who calculate costs and benefits. And right now, Iran is operating on emotion, on humiliation, on the need to show strength even when they have none. This is how wars start. Not through careful planning, but through miscalculation. Through one side believing the other is bluffing. Through desperation overriding rationality. through the need to save face, overwhelming the instinct for survival. So we watch, we wait, we stay alert. Security services are mobilized. Patrols are increased. Intelligence assets are focused on detecting any sign of Iranian retaliation. And millions of Americans are going about their daily lives, most of them unaware of just how close we are to a moment that could change everything. If Iran retaliates and strikes American targets, the president has made clear what happens next. Overwhelming force. The kind of military response that does not just punish the proxies, but eliminates the regime's ability to project power. We are talking about strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, on Revolutionary Guard command centers, on leadership bunkers. We are talking about a campaign designed not to deter, but to destroy. And if that happens, the Middle East will be transformed overnight. Iran's proxy network, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, will lose their patron and their funding. Regional powers like Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states will see an opportunity to reshape the region. Israel will have eliminated its greatest existential threat. But the human cost, the civilian casualties in Iran, the regional instability, the potential for wider conflict, all of that becomes real. This is the moment we are in. The Ayatollah is dead. Iran is threatening retaliation. The president is warning them not to. The FBI is on high alert. And somewhere in Tehran, leaders are making a choice that will determine whether this ends here or whether we are about to witness an escalation that reshapes the entire Middle East. The next 48 hours will tell us which path we are on. And when that choice becomes clear, when Iran either stands down or strikes back, you will see the analysis and the implications immediately. Because this is not just a Middle East crisis. This is a moment that could directly impact American security, American lives, and America's role in the world. Stay informed, stay aware, and understand that what happens next in Tehran will determine what happens next in New York, in Los Angeles, in every American city where Iranian sleeper cells might be waiting for orders. This is not over.